Welcome back to Blue Collar Startup, everyone. I am your co-host, Mike Nelson, here with visionary and founder of Blue Collar Startup, Derek Foster.
Hey, Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I don't know. I got a scratchy throat and,
I get a little bit of that, Tim. Allergies.
I think so, yeah.
Or what the hell is it? The chemtrails.
Oh, God.
That's my latest aluminum tinfoil suit. Chemtrails. Making my voice scratchy. So it's been a couple of weeks. I know we're kind of like a show on and then a week off and show on, but
we're gonna get better about getting content out.
Yeah, getting more regular on it. We appreciate everyone's patience, and certainly as we're watching the downloads and subscribes increase, we appreciate everyone jumping on and listening to our episodes. So if this is your first time tuning in, each week or each episode we interview business owners, business managers, people involved in the blue collar industries, trades. Today we're joined by Paul Lambert from Bonacio Construction.
Hello, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Thanks for being here.
Paul, give the listeners just a quick rundown of who you are and what you do over at Bonacio.
Wow, that's a pretty tall tale.
Can you do a quick rundown, or is it?
We'll try. Usually last guy to find out, first guy to get yelled at.
Nice.
So primarily I'm in charge of some of Sonny's projects, some of his builds. So I'm in charge of making sure the money's hitting where it's supposed to. We're finding jobs running on budget, on schedule, and then having a happy client. So, that's a fine line to dance some days when your client is also your boss. So You're talking to two different people some days when you're talking to them. So, and
you say that because for people that listen that maybe haven't heard of Bonacio Construction, but not only are you guys a builder developer, but you also, or he owns some properties that you're doing projects on. Is that a fair assessment, or?
Yeah, so a lot of his self-developed projects, we're out there and we're building those for him to retain ownership.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys are, as we were talking about previously, so you're out in Rome, I think you said. What's your stomping ground? What's your territory? Well, or the area you work in?
Rome has been on our radar for quite a while, so it's a really growing area. We got some incentives to head out to that area. So in 2019, we went out there and broke ground, and we just really saw a need for quality housing, quality apartment living, quality single family living. So we really found a niche out there that we thought we could fill pretty well.
Yeah. And now you're based out of Saratoga.
Yes.
But you also, I know you're up in Glens Falls. Where else are you guys going these days?
Oh man, it's where the projects take us. So
yeah.
Troy was a hot spot for us for a while. We were down there doing some developing. We're up in Scroon Lake. Sonny's about to roll out some new ideas up there in Scroon with some hospitality stuff that's going to be really exciting this summer. So to say we're in one spot, no, Saratoga's our home base. We try to stay by home base, but when we see these opportunities, we're jumping on them and we're traveling.
Yeah, and now from a product mix for what you're doing, right? You do residential, you do commercial. Tell us a little bit about the kinds of projects that you're working on.
Yeah, so really in my career, things have changed pretty drastically. So I was a residential guy growing up and learning the business, and pretty much into end of 06, beginning of 07 is when I went to work for Sonny. And at that time, he was doing incredible residential stuff. So the first project I landed on with him is a 36,000 square foot single family home.
Wow.
Up in Saratoga. And it's just, that's pretty overwhelming when you think about it. I came from kind of a track builder, style mentality to now I'm at this McMansion style house. But, shortly around that 07 time, the market really crashed out. And those single family track houses, nobody was really doing that anymore. So got through 07, got through 08, got through 09. We were just building very exclusive homes for exclusive people. And then really started to transition over to the commercial side of the business, the commercial projects. Complete different setting for me, complete different set of rules. Yeah, I'm still building something. I'm still, basic tools are the same, but just a lot different project, a lot different scale. Now all of a sudden you're working on a $20, a $30, a $40 million building, instead of a $300,000 house. So
yeah.
It's a little bit different.
Yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah.
And how many employees are inside the company at this point?
That's a tall order too.
Does anybody know?
there's new ones that come and go each day.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to tell you, we're probably up around the 200 number.
That's a lot of people, man.
So that's across the board. So Sonny has a couple different entities. We have a plumbing company, we have a heating company, we have a structural steel company, we have a custom mill workshop, we have a property management company. So that's across the board.
Yeah,
around that 200 mark.
But all stemming out of the original construction company.
Yeah.
Which I think, again, I always want people to understand, like, how, I don't want to say how easy is not the word, but just how accessible it is to start with something as a small construction company with maybe you and a couple of guys, and it grows into something that employs 200 people. I mean, Derek, you started your company 11 years ago now, right?
Yeah, it's been 11, almost 12 years.
Yeah, almost 12 years, and you're up over the 100 mark. Some days you're 150, I think,
150,
right? Yeah, which again is just amazing to see a climb like that and to know how accessible, again, not easy, certainly anything but easy, but how the ability to make that happen, I think, is just, people should understand that it's possible. So
you just got to step in and get started
and do the work.
Yeah.
And be tough as nails.
Some days are better than others. I'm sure.
It's funny. It's funny. I don't want to reference specific conversations, but you and I have had some chats, and I just always laugh about myself specifically, where some days, I'm tough as nails, and other days I'm just like, I'm looking for my mom. I need to hug somebody. It's just how tough owning a business can be, man. Sometimes it's crazy. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about Sonny, because around here he's kind of like a mythical character. If you haven't met him, what's he like to work for and to work with? So
he's a tremendous visionary. He sees things differently than a lot of other people see them. So I feel kind of blessed to work for him. I had come from my previous employer where I had a really good job. And I thought in my life, like, how am I going to find this again? How am I going to find that job that it feels right, I fit good at, I can kind of be myself, and landed with Sonny, and it's been just onward and upward ever since then. I mean, to think back to some of the projects we've worked on, and to know that I had the opportunity to work on Saratoga Performing Arts Center, SPAC. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite projects that I ever worked on.
It's incredible.
400,000 people a year go there and they look at our work. I mean, it was an awesome project to have worked on, and some of those houses we talked about, I mean, very exclusive. Who can say they got to build a 36,000 square foot house with a dance club, with a bowling alley, like indoor pools, basketball
That's
courts.
crazy.
I'm trying to picture, like...
I know, when he said that, I was like, what the hell do you put in a 36,000 square foot house, man? Like, I guess you put a basketball court, an indoor pool, a bowling alley.
Yeah. So, for him to have that vision and have created that, like we just kind of talked about. I mean, he came from his first projects. He was building decks for customers.
Right.
I'd call him up and, hey, Sonny, I want a 10 by 10 deck put on the back of my house.
Yeah.
And that's how he started in business. And now to see where he's brought us and led us to is just amazing. So they're about to celebrate 35 years.
Yeah.
In these next couple of weeks. So to have been there for 15 of that is pretty cool. And I enjoy it every day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing, man.
So how did you get started in the trades, Paul? With your personal background, how did you get involved?
Yeah, so it happened at a pretty young age. I would say my dad worked for a site work contractor, so it was dirt work. And at 14 was really probably like the first time I went to work with him for like the whole summer. And man, it was hard work. It wasn't fun. He shoveled a lot, man. My boss, he just had to shovel dirt all day long. He dug trenches and shoveled dirt. So my boss would leave here and there, and my dad would say, "Hey, jump on that bulldozer. I'm going to show you how to run the bulldozer," and just kind of paid attention and tried to gain as much knowledge as I could, and worked in that dirt world for probably about 5 years, and just wanted more. I didn't like going home dirty every day. You went home, your boots were all muddy, your pants were all muddy. You didn't know when you were going home because it depended on what happened that day. And I said, man, I want to do something else. I want to do a little more. So from there, I kind of landed with the Michaels Group. I think in an earlier podcast, I heard you guys had Luke Michaels on.
Yeah.
And I landed over at Michaels Group, and really that's when my career really, really flourished, and I began to gain so much knowledge about construction. And I didn't necessarily have someone teaching me how to nail some boards together, but when I landed there, I was the laborer. So my job was to make sure the houses were clean. Luke's father and uncle were just meticulous about that house. It had to be clean. It had to be presentable for the customer. John would have a statement. He didn't care if the stud was a little bit crooked in the wall, but if that house was dirty, it was the one thing that the customer would remember when they went to their house. So instilled that into me at an early age, and I worked with those guys for 14 years, and over that time just continued to watch and listen and grow and gain more knowledge. And I don't know that there was any one person that taught me that stuff. I just kind of had that work ethic that my dad instilled in me at a young age. If you want nice things in life, you're going to work hard for them. And those things started to pay off as I started to climb that ladder at the Michaels Group. So
I think that's something that we should definitely hit on. What did that process look like for you to be able to climb that ladder? I mean, there had to be a lot of you not having the fear of asking questions and learning and picking the brains of other people around you. How did that work?
Yeah. So you're a young guy. You're out there at that time. I'm in my early 20s. And I'm around carpenters and framers and guys that are in their 40s and 50s. So they're looking at me like, who's this kid? Why is he asking me all these questions? Why is he asking me how many nails go in that board? And I just was trying to soak in as much as I could and just learn as much as I could. I didn't necessarily want to learn how to nail those boards together, but I needed to know when a board was nailed together properly and when it wasn't nailed together properly, And I kind of think back a little bit about it now. And at the time, we had this guy, Jim Chandler, and I work with him now at Bonacio. But I looked up to Jim and I said, man, he was a cool cat. He was the guy in charge all the time. And he would pull up on the job site, and he had a cool truck, and he had the cool sunglasses on, the mustache, and he was in charge. You knew this guy was in charge.
The Nextel phone with the
the walkie-talkie function.
This might even been back to the bag phone, kind of coming out of that era, before Nextels. But and you just looked at that guy, and you were like, he's a pretty cool cat, man. I want to do what he's doing. How do I get to do what he's doing? And just continued to strive and work for that. And the Michaels guys, John and Dave, were great, also visionaries, and they instilled in their employees, and they set goals for their employees. And hey, if you're going to work this hard, this is what we're going to do for you. And if you do that, this is what we're going to do. And this is what you're going to do next. And they really set that path out for you. Luke's dad was amazing to work for, and he always had that vision out in front. So, real quickly, I probably a few years as a laborer, and then I became a site superintendent. So now I'm out on the job site, and I'm starting to be that guy that's in charge, and I'm not in charge fully of the job site because I'm not there yet, but I used to be in charge from after the time the sheetrock got done until the closing. So I was in charge of all the finishes. Not a lot of stuff you can screw up if you're in charge of the finishes. I'm not nailing boards together, but I'm just in charge of organizing all those guys on the finish side. So, again, did that for a few years, and then probably gained a lot of my knowledge. John brought me in the office, and he said, hey, I want you to be our service manager. You're going to take care of our customers after they move in their house. And man, I looked at it, and I thought I was getting a demotion, geez, why is he doing this to me, And now I look back at it, and I go, I really gained the most amount of knowledge at that time. When you see a problem happen in a house, or you see a window leak, or you see a bathtub leak or something, and you got to go fix the problem, or you got to find the problem to call the guy that created that problem, you really learn a lot. You learn how to not do something. You learn how to do something right. And I think, probably my 3 or 4 years as service manager, I really gained the most amount of knowledge in construction,
Yeah. Yeah, when you see things are broken and find out why they're broken, and then the next time you go to do something, you're trying to avoid that same situation, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's invaluable information.
Yeah, and you got a customer standing there. They just poured their heart and soul into their new house. They spent $300,000, $400,000 on their new home, and their tile is falling off the wall, and Mrs. Smith is crying and yelling at you, and you got to figure it out. There's nobody to turn to figure that stuff out. So I really gained a tremendous knowledge, there at that position and doing that.
Yeah, problem solving.
Yeah,
it's a huge. I mean, we talk about it's what we do as business owners is we solve problems all day. And man, I shouldn't say business owners. In business, doesn't matter what you do in a business, your job is to solve problems. It may be solve a customer service problem. It may be solve an operations problem. It may be, solve a problem for the customer. But everybody's job is to solve some problem. And it's just great because depending on where you are on that chain, right, you might be solving a lot of problems that other people create. It's one thing to solve your own problems, I feel, but sometimes it's just like, man, all I do all day is solve problems that other people created. But I guess that's the bag, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Figure out a solution.
Yeah.
And I know, when we were talking earlier, you were talking how much a creature of habit or routine you are. And so that made me think about coming into this conversation, tell us a little bit about like structure or the structure that you guys have at Bonacio that helps kind of all of it. Because again, when you're a part of organizations that large, I assume there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and how you handle all that and how you do what you do. To me, it must come back to some sort of structure in place. Is that fair, or is that?
Yeah. So a lot of that is all systems in place, systems that work. Mm-hmm. Some of the beauty about working at Bonacio is we're constantly challenged to find a better system or improve on a system. What system are we using now? What system works well? At Michael's, we were very systematic the way things were done. There was procedures, protocols, systems in place for each thing. So here I leave that organization that's very like that, and I go to Bonacio. I get there in 2007, and a lot of those things aren't in place. Mm-hmm. So now I'm like, oh my gosh, what do you mean we don't have a contract with the tile guy for how much the tile is going to cost? We got to sign a contract with that guy. Well, no, we don't do contracts here. We talk to Rick, the tile guy, and he tells us it's $100,000 and shake his hand, and he shows up and does the tile. Oh, wow. All right, this is a little different. So I get there in 2007, and a subcontractor agreement was never even really talked about. And I think quickly I brought some of that with me, and I think Sonny probably saw like, hey, I need to start maybe thinking about doing this. We're building, 30,000 square foot houses, lots of money being exchanged, and we're doing it on a handshake. So we then started to develop our systems, and we're constantly developing systems. There's no set software or anything that we're using currently. There's systems out there, but we kind of go against the grain a little bit. We have our own systems, but yeah, there's formalities, there's systems set up, there's budgets set up. We're all challenged to track our man hours on jobs and things like that. At the end of the day, that shows up on a P&L report, I'm sure, in the accounting office. So,
and as far as tracking the man hours, I'm just curious, and mainly because we're building a program right now that is a time tracking program. And I should elaborate a little bit. We're building one because we putting systems and processes in place, and we needed to put a better, because I think, as you just said, you're constantly revisiting these processes and systems and redoing them and changing them and making them better. So when something stops working, you have to fix it, right?
Right.
So we were having a problem with our accounting because of the way that we track time with our clients and with our employees. So we built this piece of software to track it. I'm just curious about like, what do you use? Do you have a piece of software, or are you spreadsheeting it, or how do you guys kind of keep an eye on your man hours?
So we have a couple different systems. We have a tremendous amount of experience around our office and guys that have been in the field and now are in the office. But so we start with a budget. You know, a job is budgeted to have X number of hours. But now, how do we track that? So yeah, we do have a software program that we use. Guys can jump on their mobile phone. They're doing their time card every Tuesday. Those hours are linked right to our job report, which is then linked right to our budget, and we can see how we're doing compared. And sometimes weather's a factor, you know, fatigue, vacations. I heard you guys talking about a couple of weeks ago. Wow, all these people are on vacation this week. Like, you know, all of those things factor into how long that job's taken us. And so now we got a micro look at, why did that job not get done in 100 hours, or why did it get done in 88 hours? And we got to, you know, maybe focus and focus our energy at that. And so that's kind of what I was talking about when we're talking about getting better and refining systems. We're constantly looking at those things. And that's at a project management level, you know what I mean? Sonny's challenging us to, hey, what did we do really good there? Let's do that again. Hey, can we share that with the rest of the PMs? Can we make sure we're doing that across the board? Like, those are the challenges, you know, he pushes us to every day.
What, you know, I'd love to hear the contrast between when you were coming up the ranks, you know, 20 something with all the, you know, quote unquote old timers, which we're now the old timers, I guess. Yeah, that's right. You know, any contrast between the hiring environment back then and what we see now? You know, like how do you compare those two things?
Yeah, that's a challenge. You know, I feel like, you know, when I was coming up the ranks, I came from a world where you had to prove yourself. You know, I didn't come into the office on day one and say, hey, John, I expect you to pay me $80,000 today, and I expect I'm going to do this. And, oh, hey, by the way, I want a new truck. And, hey, I want that, you know. Like, you were awarded those things after you proved yourself. Today feels different. You know, I had an interview with a guy last week, and he came in, and the first 5 sentences out of his mouth, he was telling me what he's not going to do. And I kind of had to check myself a little bit, and he took me off my game a little bit because I had a formatted set of questions I was going to say. And, you know, he basically told me what he wasn't going to do for the first 5 sentences. And I was like, man, this is a little bit different, you know. So we're in a different world now. It's just different. You know, some of the younger guys coming out, you know, they're expecting a pretty high level of pay for a less skill, you know, where I feel like I knew I didn't have those skills. So I had to go out and I had to work harder than that guy. I had to work harder than the guy that might have went to college, because I didn't go to college. I didn't come in there with a degree. So I had to work harder. That was my equalizer. You know, I knew I could work harder than the guy next to me or the guy, you know, behind me. I could work harder than most people. So for me, that was my equalizer, and I had to prove myself. And that at Michael's group and at Bonacio has proven that you can grow, you can get up that ladder by just working harder than that next guy, you know, working a little bit later, working a little bit smarter, you know. So I feel like I had that advantage.
And is like I feel like that's a super huge point to bring up and to kind of put an exclamation point on, as far as the men and women, and I want to say especially the trades, but I think this almost applies to anything, right? If you are willing, there's going to be two kinds of people that show up for the job, right? There's going to be the person that shows up and says, "Hey, man, I'm not taking out garbages. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this, and I'll do some of these things over here, and you're going to need to pay me a whole bunch of money, right?" Mm-hmm. And then there's the other person that's just like, "Hey, listen, I just want to learn skills. I want to be better. I want to do better." And they show up every day on time, maybe even early, who knows, you know, and they work their butts off, and then they're staying a little late. And, you know, I have this hope that people start to realize that the person that's showing up early, working their tail off, that in the long run they get rewarded. I feel like is that fair, or am I just being like obtuse about this whole thing?
100% accurate.
Yeah. I mean, those guys are going to stand out in a crowd, and a lot of times we saw some of the challenges in our industry coming some years ago. So we got over to BOCES. We've been over there for 10 years trying to pluck some guys out of there, pluck some young women out of there, and bring them to our trade. So one of the first things they ask me when I go in there, hey, what do you want? What do you want out of the student? Does he need to know how to cut a compound miter on a 2x12? Nah, we'll teach him that.
Right.
What do you need him to do? I need him to show up to work. I need him to show up like he wants to work, and then I need him to work.
Right.
Send him with a pair of boots and a pair of gloves and a pair of jeans on, and we'll teach him the rest. He doesn't need to know anything else. Yeah, if he can read a tape measure, that's pretty cool. That's good. But, cutting a miter on a board, we'll teach him that. We'll show him the way we want that done. But if he knows some of those skills, that's cool. But just get him to come to work. Get him to want to work. Get him to show up like he's dressed for work. Those are some skills we need. Not hard stuff like that. That's what we're looking for. Those are the guys. And you will get rewarded. The harder you're working, you're standing out from the crowd. You're working harder than that guy next to you, and you'll get rewarded for those abilities.
I feel like you got something to add on that, Derek.
I just think it starts from an early age, background and being taught when kids are younger. A lot of the schools now, it's more of just preparing them for a state test, or not teaching them a lot of the soft skills that are really going to pay off, down the road.
I hear different things. I like from different, I don't say young people, God, I'm old. From younger people, where they're making statements like, well, taking advantage of me and I'm not working past 5 p.m. and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you look at it that way, like, it makes you unemployable. It makes you, or at least makes me not want to bring you into my organization, because that's just such an attitude that like I don't want to say it's cancer, but it's just not good for the environment, right? Like you have people that are working hard, and for every person that you have working hard, and if there's a person that's saying, "Oh, I'm leaving right at 5," I punch in, I punch out, bud. It's like, well, like you're making that person's hard work, like, you're mocking it almost. I feel like I don't know. I keep seeing this from people, and I'm just like, wow. I'm like, the fact that it actually exists, I guess I'm just dumbfounded by it, but.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're at a point of a shift is coming, or a shift is taking place. I love that you guys we're getting this information out there. We're talking about it more openly now, and the fact that we're on a podcast talking about this stuff. So maybe we're reaching some of these younger guys, and they're getting chances to hear real time stories. I mean, I've listened to 10 or 12 or 15 of your episodes, and these are real stories, man. These are real guys that started like I did, and now have built their business into something amazing. So,
and every one of them worked hard.
Yeah.
Not one of them showed up and said, "Hey, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. I'm doing," it's crazy. Yeah.
Well, how long did it take you, Paul, when you were at the Michaels Group to go from being in a labor position to the customer service side of the business?
I would tell you probably a timeline of that was somewhere around the 5-year mark. So, I swept a lot of houses, man. I cleaned up a lot of debris. So, that was probably three years or so of that process, and then worked my way into a site superintendent role. And then John pulled me into the office after that, and into the service manager role.
I think a lot of people nowadays, they just don't have the patience. They'll work hard and we see it all the time. They'll work hard for 6 months, and then it's okay. I did my part. I got a good review, and now I don't have to keep working hard.
I can sit back.
And the little steps day after day that you take, I mean, it takes years to accomplish growth. And every time you grow, it gets harder. It doesn't get easier. And I think that's the myth. Okay, I get to kick my feet up now and relax. Well, no, it gets harder.
It's interesting you say that too, because I remember in high school I ran track, and I was one of the faster distance runners that we had. And I used to run. I would run my ass off, get out in front of the pack, and then I'd look back and I'd see how far away the next person behind me was. And if I had a big enough gap, I'd slow down and I'd kind of take it easy a little bit, and then they'd start to catch up. So I'd speed back, I'd work real hard for a little bit and then I would slow up. And so what was happening was I was winning races, but I wasn't really like getting my best times out there. And then when my coach was like, listen, like, stop looking back, man, like stop, do it. Just get out there and frickin' run. And let's get your better times up there. And it makes me think about that, right? It's like you get people that come in and they run like hell for 6 months. They work their butts off for 6 months, and then they start looking back and saying, oh, all right, well, I worked hard. I can ease up a little bit. And then, but it doesn't sound like they ever start running again.
For me, I feel like the Michaels group, they were that visionary that, they dangled the carrot in front of you. John was phenomenal at looking ahead, and you would go in for your annual review and you'd sit down with John, and there'd be your list on one side of the paper, and then on the other side of the paper was his list. And you helped him develop your list. So, hey, Paul, what things do you want to do this next coming year? And you'd list 5 things. And he'd flip over the paper and he'd go, okay, you do number 1 and 2, and this is what I'm going to do on my list, 1 and 2 for you. And if you get to number 3 and you get that done, we're going to do this for you. And there was always this incentive, this carrot being held in front of you. And it just continued to push me and push me to learn more, do more, and want to do more. And every year, man, it was like you dreaded having to go in and sit at that meeting if you knew you didn't do your 5 items on the list.
Oh, yeah.
Because that same piece of paper came out, it hit the desk, and okay, Paul, how'd you do on number 1? This says you were going to go back to college and get a degree in this, and this. Yeah, shit, John, I didn't do that. All right, well, hey, we'll leave that one on the list. We'll talk about it next year. Let's go to number 2. And you would go right down that list, man, and it was just it was motivating to me. Like, I got to get these things off my list.
Yeah, man. You didn't want to show up without them, right?
Right, exactly.
That's great.
And you had a year to accomplish those things, or show initiative or show some movement on that list item in a year. So what I learned from that, it continued to drive me. And now I try to do that with my guys, like, hey, and sometimes those things don't have to be monetary, like something that motivates me in the wintertime. I love to be out in the snow. I love to snowmobile. I tell Sonny, hey, on Wednesdays, man, you might not be able to find me because that's when the trails are the flattest. There's the fewest amount of people there. You can call me about after 7 o'clock at night. I'll work all night long, but Wednesday during the day, I might be out on the trail somewhere. So like that's important to me. So he sets up systems and things around me that are going to allow me to do that. I'm not necessarily monetarily need to be paid more this year, but Wednesdays are important to me, or Fridays in the summer, like, man, I'd love to be at the lake today. Like, how am I going to get there? So, those are kind of the unique things that we talk about now as I get older, and different things are important to me now. Yes, I want to make more money. Everybody wants to make more money, but they aren't necessarily the things that motivate me quite like they did when I was younger, I want that Friday afternoon or that Friday at the lake, So
I like that Friday afternoon as well.
Yeah.
Last thing I want to do is be in meetings. Because most of my life is meetings, like at this point. So it's like meetings. And like Fridays, I'm like, man, I don't, especially during the summer when it's sunny.
Yeah, you're checked out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And we made a policy here from June 1st to October 1st that like on Fridays, like you have the option, you can take the day off, you can work your hours earlier in the rest of the week. So if you want to, if you're trying to hit your 40, you can do 10-hour days Monday through Thursday, then take Friday off. You can work remotely. Like we try to give everybody options because same thing. I know if I'm checked out on Fridays, they're checked out on Fridays, right? So it's like, but to your point though, of trying to come up with ways to help the people that you're working with have the quality of life that they're trying to have at that point in time. Or maybe they just want to work 80 hours a week, make a ton of money. So great, then I'll give them that option too, like, yeah, I think it's a great point.
Yeah.
I really do.
So you guys do a lot with workforce development, at Bonacio now, and what are some of the things that you guys are doing, Paul, to push along the cause? And
yeah, so I mean, we first start by we're over at BOCES talking to the instructors and talking to the directors. we're at high schools now. We're in at career days at high schools, and
Are you doing Career Jam with
I don't know.
with Ryan Van Amber?
I don't know that I'm there personally, but we might.
You guys are doing?
Yeah, but my speech usually starts the same way each time. Hey guys, I'm going to tell you something that maybe your parents haven't told you yet. You don't have to go to college. You can come out in the industry. You can learn a trade. You're going to work real hard. It might be 10 years. It might be 15 years. It might be 20 years. You're going to work your ass off. Mm-hmm. But you're going to make a good living. You're going to learn something with your hands. You're going to learn a skill that no one can take away from you, and a lot of kids are, they aren't told like some of the hard truths like that. You know what I mean? For how many years were we told like, hey, you have to go to college. You have to go to college and be successful. Yes, you do if you want to follow that path. Mm-hmm. I wasn't a college guy. Like that didn't motivate me. I wanted to get out of school as quickly as possible. Yeah. I learned what I needed to learn, and I was like, I want to go do something else, man. I don't want to sit.
School's not for everybody. That's for sure.
No, it's not. And it is starting to catch on. We're seeing high schools now are welcoming us in as mm-hmm. tradesmen and talking to their students. I'm seeing ninth graders like so engaging. It's not even funny. I'm like, wow, all right. This feels good, man. I just had a really good conversation with a ninth grader. Mm-hmm. Some of the seniors guys were playing grab ass and I couldn't even get their attention. And I'm having this great conversation with a ninth grader. Like, okay, I think like the change is starting to happen, mm-hmm. So we're doing that. We're still incentivizing. So, if there are those guys that maybe are at BOCES and they do want to go to college, we're offering a tuition program. So, hey, come work with us, man. You can learn some hands-on skills, but you want to go back to school in the fall? Okay, we'll help you pay your tuition, and we'll do some tuition reimbursement. So we're kind of trying to think outside the box, because again, some guys are still going to want to go to college, or mm-hmm. some guys are going to want to gain more knowledge, and whether it be in business or whatever it might be. And hey, we're going to help you do that, so.
I know one thing we're just in the initial stages of outlining for us is, one thing in our industry, as many industries, we've got low barrier to entry, right? So like anyone can tomorrow decide that they're a marketing company, tomorrow, right? I'm a social media marketing company, or whatever it is. Like, it's just, you no longer really have to have degrees. You no longer have to go to school to get into marketing. You don't need to have an internship or an apprenticeship. You can literally just tomorrow decide you're a marketing company, right? Watch a couple freaking YouTube videos and you're on your way. And so what happens with that, and I had this happen to me a couple of years ago, where you're basically becoming a training ground for your employees, where they come to work for you, they work for a year or two, and then they decide, I can do this on my own, I can do it better, I can make more money, and I'm going off on my own. So one thing that we're trying to do right now is to try to kind of harness that entrepreneurial spirit that comes in with an employee and have the agreement with them when they come on board of saying, hey, listen, like, you want to own your own company someday, we're going to help you do it. We're going to train you. We're going to help you. And then we're going to support you when you go out and do it. And maybe that's funding. Maybe that's making you, a quote unquote branch manager. So you own your own shop in a different municipality, or maybe it's here locally. I don't know what it is. And again, we're still outlining it, but really trying to harness the people that will come in. Because, one of the hardest things, and I don't know about, I think, Derek, you have a similar thought, but mm-hmm. One of the hardest things for us is finding good salespeople, right? And most of the time, the people that are good at sales are also the people that want to be entrepreneurs and want to own their own businesses, and they have that skill set to be able to go out and talk to people. So it's like, how do you harness that without losing it? But do you guys have any thoughts on that? As far as I'm sure that you see it. I know that both of you probably see it as well.
We're similar type business, low barrier to entry.
Yeah,
and that's part of the reason we went the franchise route, so we can help people get into their own seat mm-hmm. and start their own business at some point. So.
Yeah, I think we're similarly seeing the same thing. So we want to. There's going to be those guys. There's going to be those guys that are breakouts that mm-hmm. want to do their own thing. So they may not have the capital to go out and do that. So while we may not want to lose them as an employee, I might be gaining the best subcontractor that I've ever met too.
Right.
So I'm helping this guy start his business. How many new roofing startup companies are out there? You know what I mean? So take for an example, we start out in Rome, New York. I don't know anybody. Mm-hmm. I need to find a new roofer. what's the best way I can find a new roofer? Well, I can make one.
Sure.
I can go out and find a kid that wants to get into business, but he doesn't have any money to buy insurance. Okay, I can help you with that. Doesn't have any money to buy shingles. All right, I can help you with that. And, he needs a forklift to get the shingles on the roof. Okay, we can help you with that. So we can start to build these companies, you know, and build these, you know, self-starting individuals. So we're more than on board with doing something like that as well. You know, if there's guys out there listening that want to have a career in it, they want to be a framing contractor, but maybe they can't get over that $10,000 bill that's going to cost them to go out and buy their insurance, come talk to us. We'll talk to you about it.
Well, and I think too about talking to kids that are in school and high school, like, you know, you guys are going to those things like talking, because it's such a, you know, it's such a trendy thing for kids right now. And I think a large can't speak all of a sudden. Let's see if my cheek's numb or if I'm not stroking out or anything. So, but a large portion of kids that are, you know, all they see on the internet all day long is guys with Lambos because they're, you know, they got a YouTube channel or they're entrepreneurs. And I mean, most of it's smoke and mirrors, as we all know. But nonetheless, these kids, that's what they want to do. They want to own their own business. And I'm just, you know, wondering, how do we harness that mentality? Because those are people, they're going to be movers and shakers. Might as well be moving and shaking with you rather than against you, you know. Yeah. But anyway, interesting thing to explore. What else are you guys doing as far as the workforce development goes? Like, how do you, recruit, retain people?
So again, similarly, we talked about we're at those job fairs. We're at expos and whatever we can get invited to. You know, we're over there speaking. If we can get over to BOCES, you know, those are the kids that kind of know that what path they want or they know what they want to do. So let's go over and try to harness some of that energy and whatever it might be. If they have a project going on, hey guys, can we come over and help you with the project? Hey, can you guys come out to our job site? You want to see real-time construction going on. So we'll oftentimes, a couple times a year, we have them out to our job site, you know, and they're learning great skills in that classroom, but sometimes coming out just into that job site, you know, if we can make an impact on those guys or show them something that maybe they aren't seeing at the classroom. And I don't want to cut down what they're doing over there at all, because they're doing a fabulous job and they're doing great training with the kids that are going through that program. But they do have to get to a test at the end of it. And sometimes they're focused on that book and sometimes they're focused on that test. So come out to the job site and let's look at some real world stuff that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
You know? Safety. We want to talk about safety with guys, you know, like that's huge. Like, we care about you guys. We want you going home in the same condition that you got here this morning. You know, like
10 fingers, 10 toes, right?
Yeah, we'll drive home about that when we can get the students out to our job site. So, other ways we just have industry leaders that are getting out there, and everybody's getting on board. Whether it be the builders associations now, and I think we shared some names with you guys. You know, other business owners, business leaders that are now down at the state, and they're you know, really getting the word out there about, hey, we need these guys. We need skilled laborers. You know, we need these guys in our field. So just trying to talk about it more and get the word out there.
Yeah, have the conversation more often.
Yeah.
What do you think, 30 years you've been doing this in construction?
Yeah, so I'm 14. I got into it. I'm 50 now, so I'm running out of fingers and toes.
Whatever the math is, I know I can't do it. I tell people I'm a victim of technology. I can't add up anything anymore without a calculator. But
yeah.
What do you think in those few years that you've been in the trades? What do you think the secret to your success is?
Man, it's certainly hard work is one of the things, but I think it's don't ever stop like trying to get to the next level or be a better person. You know, be a better. I just want to be the best that I can be at what I'm doing. You know, whether it's walking over to my car, I want to walk to my car with a purpose. You know, like just have purpose in life and try to be the best person that you can be. You know, and the money and that stuff that will follow. You know, work hard. That stuff's going to come. It's not going to come in a year or in 6 months like we just talked about. It's going to take a little longer than that, but it'll come. Somebody's going to recognize you. It's going to come. Like that's my path, and that's what worked for me. So, you know, I'm happy to share, my thoughts on that and be out here talking about that stuff.
What are some of your personal goals here, Paul, over the next few years? You seem like you're very, obviously you're very driven, but I mean, you must set goals for yourself too, from your days with John Michaels and Michaels Group. So what's next for you?
Probably my biggest one. I want to work less, man. I want to
snowmobile more.
Yeah, I want to make the same amount of money that I'm making. I want to keep Sonny happy, but I want to work a lot less. So what is that? I don't know that I particularly have that shaped yet, but just want to work less. I want to continue to train guys that I work with, some of our younger staff, some of my coworkers. Let's continue to be better. Let's continue to train each other. Let's train our replacement. Let's get the next generation up so that I can work less. I want to enjoy. I don't want to say I'm on the downhead slide of my life, but hey, when I look at the calendar, there's not a lot of years left there that I'm going to be in a position to go out and do the things that I like to do, whether it be extreme sports or whatever it is, but I want to work less. So that's kind of my focus the last couple of years.
It is weird once you start to look at the calendar and see that there's fewer days ahead than there are behind, kind of thing. Like I've been looking at them like, man, I'm 46. If I'm halfway done, which pretty much, life averages, I'm probably more than halfway done at this point. But it's weird. It's a weird thing, right? It changes your perspective. But
it helped me to gain a little perspective when I listened to your guys' podcast and I heard Luke on here, and I was like, it really made me stop, pause for a second, and go, man, look back at what I did. Look back at what I accomplished, and look back where I started. When I was digging ditches and getting all muddy and getting my clothes dirty, and look at where I've gone to. So it gave me a little perspective, made me smile a little bit, made me feel pretty proud of what I've accomplished, and I'm happy to sit here today and talk to you guys about that and share my story, and hopefully this is reaching somebody else, or 10 other people, or 20 other people, 100 other people, and they're thinking about the same things.
Yeah, and we're grateful that you came in too. I know we got to wrap up. We're running low on time here, but one last question: if you were going to tell a listener, one thing about being successful in the trades, and I know we kind of asked the same questions in different ways, but if you're going to tell them one thing about being successful in the trades, what would it be?
I think it's just work hard, man. Set your goals for yourself. Work hard. Know where you want to go. Work hard, and that's really the best advice I could give.
I think it's good advice, knowing where you want to go, especially, right?
Yeah.
Like think about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and where it's going to take you.
Yeah, I mean, from a very early age, we talked about early on, but when my mom was pregnant and carrying me in the womb, my parents were building a new house at that time. And my mom tells me stories of, she'd be in there and helping my dad paint, and her belly bumped out, and I'm in there and I'm like, did I gain this knowledge from then?
That's right.
Is that my path before I was even born? I don't know. But it's a funny story that I like to share with people.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And if people want to learn more about you, more about Bonacio Construction and the projects you guys are working on, where can they find you all?
Oh, man. Stop at our office in Saratoga, Bonacio.com. Look us up. My email address is on there. Hit us up. We're everywhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks again for coming on. Appreciate
it, Paul.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate you getting this word out there and allowing us to come on and share our stories.
Absolutely. Grateful to have you. And if you're listening, you're looking for more information, you can obviously find us. BlueCollarStartup.io is our website address. Well, we do have an Instagram that I do not ever update because I'm just not really on social media right now, but we may post on there sometime. But really, check us out on the podcast, the website. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, Rumble, YouTube. And then, of course, there is the Blue Collar Blueprint, which is a section on our website. It is a free portal, a bunch of content on there, and we're trying to add content whenever we can. Again, we're giving it away to you guys. It's just a lot more business owner content, people talking about how to do different things, whether it's finance, staying healthy as an entrepreneur, all that kind of stuff. So check it out, sign up, and thanks for listening. Yeah, that's right. Share the show. I know. I always forget about, got to be like Andy Frisella, guys. Share the show. We won't say what he does, but yeah. Thanks, everybody.